Good morning, everybody. Today we're gonna talk about a doomsday issue. A data tsunami is the environmental disaster in the making. I guess it's not enough that this year has been really weird for everybody. Now they're telling us that the data that we consume is going to be consuming us because it produces so much CO2. And there are articles like this one: a data tsunami is the environmental disaster waiting to happen. Climate change activists are coming for your binge watch. Netflix is going to be, consuming all the CO2 that's creating all the CO2 that's in the world. Completely unsustainable. How streaming and other data demands take a toll on the environment. 2-hour Netflix binge worse than the emissions than 15 miles of driving. Wow. If that's true, then that's horrible. Okay, let's mention one more. This was very recent. This is November 13th. Ideas with Nala. This is one of the things that actually has inspired me to make this video. They talk about really important parts of the economy and the impact of the digital society. Yes, of course, there are definitely important factors to consider. There is a carbon footprint for sure, but then they state two facts. One, that watching an hour of streaming video is as bad as driving for 5 miles, where Yahoo had like 15 miles. And the second one is sending 65 emails is just like driving a car for 1 kilometer. That is a little bit crazy. That's a little bit crazy because 65 emails cannot consume as much energy as a car does in a mile. Otherwise, there would be no free email. That's just a fact. And we'll go into the calculations and I'll show you why. Unsustainable streaming, data tsunami, horrible disaster waiting to happen. So there's two pieces of research. One is the Digital Power Group. So this is some kind of coal promotion industry, right? This was sponsored by the American Coalition for Coal Electricity. And what they say is, where do we have it? So it's watch an hour of video weekly consumes annually more electricity than 2 new refrigerators a year. I know that my refrigerator costs me probably about 30% of my electricity bill, and I know that Netflix doesn't cost me as much as 30% of my electricity. So 2 fridges would then be double that. Netflix is going to be bankrupt tomorrow. Essentially, after this research was published, Netflix is now bankrupt because they consume so much electricity. I know that if I had 2 fridges, that would cost me $50 for sure per month. A Netflix plan is roughly what, $10? So that means that the electricity bill that I'm paying for, Netflix has to cover the $40 downfall in the cost of electricity. Well, maybe they pay bulk rates, so they pay 3 times less than me, but still, there's a negative there. If a household pays $10 for the subscription and it consumes $50 worth of energy, it kind of doesn't work out, does it? Now let's see what Netflix says about it. The carbon footprint per their customer base, this is from 2015, is about 300 grams of CO2 per customer, about 0.07 of a typical household footprint. How does that calculate? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Where is the 2 kilowatt hours per gigabyte that I consume when I'm transferring data? The digital cleanup had this same exact quote on it. Now they've removed it for some reason, but they still have the other one. Yeah, sending every spam email, even if we don't open it, releases an estimated 3 grams of CO2 in the atmosphere. The source is the McAfee carbon footprint of email, and a finding in the McAfee carbon footprint of email is that the average GHG emissions associated with spam image is 3 grams of CO2. Much of this energy consumption associated with spam 80% comes from the end user deleting spam and searching for legitimate emails. So why does it say even if we don't open it, releases 3 grams? They didn't read the first page of their source. And if you scroll down, you have a percentage of GHG here. Pretty clearly, it says viewing spam, 52% of the greenhouse gas emissions. False positives, 22%. What does false positive mean? Well, you're searching for an email, but you can't find it because you have so much spam. Huh? Really? Who does that? Who views spam? Who searches through spam? Nobody. Okay? There's false negatives where spam is sent to, where the legitimate email is sent to your spam filter. Otherwise, spam is filtered pretty transparently. Spam filtering, 16%. Yeah, I can agree with that. 16% of that 0.3 grams definitely can be due to spam filtering because it's a very compute intensive process. Message storage, less than 1%. Incoming email servers, less than 1%. Internet, 2%. Non-zombies, zombies creating spam and harvesting. This is on the spam side. How much energy spammers consume to create the spam is that much. And the internet here, 2% of that 0.3 grams is the internet. Okay? Every spam email, even if we don't open it, releases an estimated of 0.3 grams of CO2 in the atmosphere. Yeah. And the Massey lectures you will see, play this episode. I will give all the links into the description. Play this episode, listen to it. They will have the same exact foolishness with zero research. Now, fact checked. What is the carbon footprint on Netflix? Just a couple of days ago. This is a misleading media, blah blah blah. These are links to different think tanks or places, like for example here on Big Think, that they were saying watching 30 minutes of Netflix is 1.6 kilos of CO2, right? And of course the energy intensity figures have been updated with recent research. As a result of the IEA estimate for 1 hour streaming of 29 is now 36 grams of CO2, right? There was an analysis in February that said 82 grams of CO2 per hour of streaming video, right? Not 1.6 kilograms of CO2. So there is plenty of misleading videos on this, right? You got the reports, you got the Shift project, you got all of these craziness. This article is great, right? This fact check is great. Take a look at this fact check that you have here, right? It basically debunks all of the previous tabs that I had open, right? There's also really flawed assumptions like the Shift project, where essentially they're saying the gigabyte of data that's stored is accessed once by one user. That's it. All the energy consumed is one user. 1 gigabyte, one user. No, the point of streaming services is that you have as many views as possible per that gigabyte of data to deliver that media as efficiently, and then you split up that whatever wattage of energy consumed over the million, billion, whatever number of views you have. Yeah, there definitely is carbon footprint, but you have to compare this carbon footprint with what we are actually replacing these services with. We're replacing these services with cinemas, right? Netflix is replacing services with cinemas. You have to drive to your cinema. You're going to be doing a lot of driving to your cinema. Whether you have an electric or gas-powered car, it's still going to consume way more energy to move around than to consume it. Email, what is email replacing? Well, other forms of communication, like what? Sending letters, making phone calls. If we look at phone calls themselves, the design of the system is being moved to the internet. Why? Because the old system that we used to have was very power intensive and very inefficient. And why would they be moving to the internet if it wasn't more efficient? So now let's do some calculations of how much it's actually gonna consume. And I'll show you that within minutes you can easily calculate how much consumption you have per gigabyte of data stored. Let's consider just the storage, right? We got a disk drive. A disk drive consumes about, what, 20 watts if it's powered on all the time, right? We're not going to assume that it's powered on all the time. We're going to assume that it's powered on about 70% of the time, because it's going to go into, sleep or standby mode at some point in time. And it's not going to consume that full power, the full power that it's rated at. So I'm going to be very aggressive, and I'm going to say 70% of that power is actually consumed, right? I'm going to times that by 0.7, right? So that's 14 watts per disk drive. So what's the average capacity of your data center disk drives now? Well, the newest disk drives you can buy are in 16 terabyte format or something like that. So the oldest disks that are around are probably 2 or 4 terabytes. It's not efficient to run anything under 2 terabytes. But let's say there's lots of 2 and 4 terabytes. So let's average the disk consumption to 6 terabytes. We got to divide 14 watts by 6144, right? So that is the wattage per gigabyte consumed, right? And we got to do that by 24 hours, right? And we got to times it by 365. So 20 watts per gigabyte, right? And now we're assuming here that the disk is full. So let's say that the disk is kept at about 60%, which is typically what you will see in data centers. We'll try to keep data population at about 60 to 80%. Let's go with the lower figure, just like with the higher figure for the energy consumption, and we'll divide that by 0.6, right? And that gives us 33 watts per gigabyte per year. It is not 33 kilowatts per gigabyte per year. That will be as much as running your oven for 10 hours. Now, unfortunately, while I've been doing this video, the digital cleanup has taken that amount off, right? But they still have, even if we don't open that spam email, it's 0.3 of CO2 in the atmosphere. Yeah, okay, let's take the carbon footprint report and let's remove all the not viewing the email, right? Let's see how much an email actually consumes, right? We're starting with 0.3 grams per email, right? And we need to remove viewing spam. We need to remove false positives. We'll do 0.21%, right? And let's assume that we keep the spam filtering feature. So that's 0.063 grams, right? We also need to remove all the harvesting, creating spam out of that one, right? Okay, so let's remove another 2% off of that. So we can divide by 0.21 back and then times it by 0.19. And let's say that this is spam filtering, this is message storage, incoming mail servers, and the internet, right? So now we have not 0.3 grams, but 0.057 grams. In this case, we had a previous estimate was that 65 emails consume as much carbon as running for a kilometer, right? 0.3 times 65, and they're assuming that it's 20 grams of CO2 per kilometer. We can just divide that by our figure of 0.057, right? Now it's 342 emails, and that's spam filtered emails, because if you're doing spam filtering, viewing a spam and having false positives is not going to be a big impact. That is still quite an impressive number, but if we remove spam filtering from this equation, then all we have left is 2% for the internet, which we can remove because the internet infrastructure is not designed just for email. And the email is such a small factor in the overall transit of the internet that we can't include internet here. Let's just say, how much does the message storage and the incoming email server consume? Well, the 1% essentially, right? 0.03, and then we'll times that by 0.01, because only 1% in these numbers is message storage and incoming mail servers, right? So sending an email actually consumes this much, right? 0.03 grams. So if we take that 20 gram estimate and we divided by 0.003, right? That's 6,500 emails being sent. If you wanna look at how much sending an email costs in carbon, 6,500 emails are equal to 1 kilometer with a car. Most email actually will not be hitting spam filtering. Spam filtering, most known senders, they're not going to go through spam filtering. They're just going to go to the server and boom, yeah, it's received. So the number is somewhere between 350 and 6,500 emails need to be sent before it consumes the same amount of CO2 as a kilometer in a vehicle. If that number of letters was sent, even 350 physical letters, if we just didn't use email and we just send letters for everything, I would say that, that would consume a bit more CO2. So what I'm going to say is, it's not as bad as it looks, right? We're somewhere in between many emails and many, many emails cause an impact. You're not going to get away from this digital economy, right? The digital economy also reduces the travel, as we've seen now that people are actually using virtual offices. We've seen that people are not traveling anymore. That reduces greenhouse gas emissions a lot. I've been advocating for virtual offices for, over 10 years, at least 10 years, since the internet has become basically usable for office workers to stay at home. A real problem would have been back in, 2002 or 2003 if we had this kind of issue. For example, 2003 when there was the SARS outbreak, right? If the SARS virus would have been as destructive as this one, back then it would have been difficult to send everybody home. There were collaboration tools, but most of it wasn't video, most of it wasn't available. A lot of this is also driven by technology. Think of that next time you read this kind of data tsunami, the environmental disaster. All right, that's it for today. Sorry about this video. It's a little bit different. I really wanted to get it out there because it's an important topic to me. And I think that what journalists need to do is start researching. If you have a mission, be on a mission with realistic data. Don't be on a mission with bad data, right? I really loved the Massey lecture, but once they got to the point when they started quoting this research that I was familiar with the McAfee one, but I wasn't familiar with the one from the coal promoters here. So yeah, I was definitely shocked that they would use that kind of research because they had a lot of good arguments in there, but then they ruined the whole piece with bad arguments, right? And this digital cleanup thing, this is the dumbest thing ever, right? This is the dumbest thing ever. What they were telling people is, delete your emails because you gotta delete your emails because 1 gigabyte of data is like having your oven on for 20 hours. No, it's not. Deleting emails is actually going to cause a bigger impact because you're going to actually wake up data that was sitting on a drive that otherwise would probably be in sleep mode. Cleaning up your mobile storage is not going to do anything on your device. I like cleanup day, but digital cleanup day is unfounded. Yeah, according to the same study, an email weighs on average 230 kilobytes. That's worth 7.4 watts a year. No, it's not. So if you delete 32 emails, you'd save 2,200 watts. That's the equivalent of a light bulb left on for a day. Okay. So they've removed the oven, but they've put in this. Data tsunami is coming. Enjoy your holidays. I'm probably not going to be posting anything until next year. If I have some time, I will post something around Christmas and New Year's. Otherwise, that's going to be probably my last video of this year. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy my content, and I will see you in my next video in the new year. So happy New Year, everybody. Bye.